Right. Well, welcome to the Audacious Life and the Audacious Mamas podcast. Today, I'm excited because I have a guest who I feel like I connected with very quickly. She's so down to earth, and I think she really surprised me in that what she's doing is working with corporations, but she seemed to me so relatable and not corporate in any way. I'm really excited. No offense to corporate people. I just want to talk about this, just how much women and moms are carrying the weight of so many things and really busting through the expectations that we put on ourselves, society puts on us, giving ourselves permission to just breathe and be and listen to our inner voices. And there's no better person than to do this than Amy Wong. So welcome, Amy, and tell us about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here and spend this time with you. So I so enjoyed connecting with you, which seems like, I don't know, what was it, eons ago?
I know, right?
We're all in this time warp with
I know
what's going on in the world. So real quick, my story. So I'm a mama. I've got a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, and a husband who's my best friend, and we live crazy busy lives and, live in the Bay Area, California, and 2 hairy dogs that shed way too much. And, so all of that fun stuff. And professionally, I am a leadership coach, and I partner primarily with executives and leaders and teams on all things growth, transformation, and flow.
Okay.
And, that it's a big, broad topic. And, when I narrow in on really where my passions and my expertise lie within this, it's all things communication. And so whether that's public speaking, team dynamics, interpersonal dynamics, pitching, presenting, really namely creating and sustaining trust with one another, that's really where I get super excited. And just short form communication in my world, the way I see it, that's where everything happens. Everything is happening in this medium of communication.
Sure.
We don't really think about it that way. But whether it's communication with others or communication with ourselves, which we're going to talk about today, this thing called communication, it's so important. And we rarely zoom out and focus on it in this way. But the truth is, nothing happens in a vacuum. We're not creating impact in a vacuum. It's in relationship to one another. And so the way I relate to communication is, well, one, if we can get this, zoom out and get this right, so much is possible. And so that's a big part of it. But also too, communication, it's an effect, it's a symptom of the relationship we have with ourselves. And so when we truly want to thrive, I see that communication is really an amazing entry point to get to the deeper level of the perceptual shifts that are necessary for us to truly live a life of freedom, of joy, and of flow, as I mentioned earlier. So that's kind of
I just love
in a nutshell.
all of that. I love that. So I know we can go really deep on this, but one of the things that I wanted to touch on, because I do have your early copy of your book, and I didn't get through all of it, but I love it.
Thank you.
Living on Purpose, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And what was interesting to me that really stood out was your own evolution from, I was in tech, so being able to relate to the logical piece and being more, going from that to this piece of more connection to self communication, which is a softer, more intuitive thing. So say a little bit about that journey, because that's a leap, I think.
Oh yeah. So, I very, very driven individual. I started as a young child. I've got that hyper achieving sort of tendency, and very ambitious, and also extremely from a very young age, I was extremely passionate with math. And so studied that in college, went to Cal, majored in math. I was also very passionate about music. And so really was immersed in both. And just because of the way my mind works, the things that I love, which tend to be teaching and facilitating, and I ended up in tech. And so I started interning at Sun Microsystems while I was at Cal, and I was just turning 18 years old. And I had developed a niche that really was wonderful. And I managed to stay at Sun Microsystems through my college years. And so by the time I graduated, I had a full-time job, and it was, in every respect, it was a dream come true, right? It was I loved my team. I loved my bosses. I loved the job. I loved I loved everything about it. And, you know, it was fulfilling to a point. But I remember speaking to my manager early on. I must have been, I don't know, 20, 22, and his name was Gary Rush, and what an incredible manager he was. And I was like, Gary, like, I don't know if this is my purpose. Is my job really to be on the back end building UI designs for our configurator? Like, there's got to be a better thing for me to be doing in the world that makes a difference. And he's like, Amy, you contribute, that's enough. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Like, there's got to be more. And so we had this big conversation about purpose. So I remember really early on feeling like I got a great job on paper, but it's not, something's missing. And so, for the 10 years at Sun, I fooled myself into thinking I was super happy because I had followed the formula, right? And so we all are taught the formula. It's do really well in school, get good grades so you can get into a good college, so you can get a good job and make lots of money, and then you'll be happy. And so we're never taught to question that. And we're not taught to really listen for what enlivens us, what lights us up. And so I was not even aware of this thing like that I have now coined the formula. And it wasn't until I had my first child, who's now 13. And, for all the mamas out here, that are listening in, what that feels like, that you have your first child and the bottom drops out and the world opens up, and it is the most magnificent and jarring experience that any human can go through. Because the way I see it, it's here you are and your world just revolves around you and nothing else. That's it, which is great. And then as soon as that baby pops out, now your world's over there and it never comes back. And it's this massive shift in perspective, and it's not a bad thing. It's just extremely jarring. And so when that shift happens, it causes you to question everything. And so that really catalyzed a big breakthrough for me, because I thought I knew who I was, and it wasn't until I had Aiden that I was like, oh my God, who am I? Because what I saw was I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back to work. This phenomenal job on paper, and I was raising it was perfect, but I had no reason, no logical reason to say no. And I knew I wasn't going to, I didn't want to be a stay-at-home mom. And so, I mean, I had to be home with my son, yes, but I wasn't going to give up my time with him for that. And so that jarring sense of who am I just totally caused the bottom to drop out. And I did go through a dark night of the soul sort of situation. And I have a few friends that have said, Amy, maybe that was postpartum depression. And I say, it's interesting. Yeah. I'm like, what if, there's so much that happens after a child is born. And the medical industry has no way to diagnose matters of the heart. And what if this massive shift that happens for most of us, that it is jarring, that does cause us to question, that does fall, sometimes cause us to fall through. It's like, maybe postpartum depression is a catch-all term. Sure. But what I know is that it forced me to really wake up. And it was in my lowest moment of just not knowing, no clarity, no reason for being upset. Like it was a really uncomfortable moment. And I was in my closet, and this is so funny, Stephanie. I can't describe how and why this worked, but I'm rather spiritual, right? I love all things consciousness studies. So, but what's funny, I was in my closet and I hit the lowest of lows, and I threw my arms to the side and I look up to the ceiling and I'm like, I give up. You show me the way. And I don't even know who I was referring to. And not like a godlike way. I was just, hey, you show me the way. And this is what's so wild. Immediately after I had surrendered in this way, I was hit with this vibrating knowing. Like I have no words to describe this sensation that came through, and within every cell of my body, I heard this message: Amy, you're going about it all wrong. It's not about figuring it out. It's about feeling it out. And I'll tell you, it was like this veil had been lifted and ripped from me, and my entire perception completely changed in an instant, and everything changed after that. And that really was what shifted me from the first part of my life in tech into this world, because what I got was, it is about following the feeling, not following the strategy.
Wow.
What is that feeling of inspiration versus, oh, that's a good idea? And so that really is the foundation of what we're going to talk about, and what shifted me onto this path.
And I've had that exact moment, literally, with the arms stretched out, like, okay, speaking similar words. So I know that that's real. And I've had several dark nights of the soul. So and I've also had postpartum depression there. To me, not quite the same. I do feel
good to know.
You need to break down to break through often. And people are so trying to distract or drug or, like whatever, nothing against real medication. I'm just saying, like, sometimes there's a deeper thing going on that is just, it's beyond words almost, right?
Well said. Well said. But I think there's so much wisdom in to break down, to break through. That's right. Yeah.
And if we stop stopping ourselves, stop criticizing ourselves, and just allow ourselves to kind of be in it and trust a little bit, like what's on the other side is often a beautiful rainbow or something very different than we can even conceive of, because we're so stuck in our own story, in our own programming from early life and work and all that. And you can't get out of it sometimes until you crash and burn.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. There's so much goodness in that, and for me, I like to just rest on the fact that we live in a plane of duality. Like we exist as a result of this thing called duality, right? We cannot have light without dark. We cannot have up without down. We cannot have birth without death. And so all aspects of growth and all aspects of existence are predicated on this thing called duality. So it would be unreasonable to think that growth and transformation is a linear movement in the direction of constantly feeling good. We grow equally in the dark as we do the light. And in fact, I think we grow more in the dark.
I do too.
Like when we plant blossoms, we put it in stinky soil. I mean, my gosh, have you ever smelled fish fertilizer? That stuff is nasty. It's so gross, but it makes the most beautiful blossoms, right? And so we cultivate in these dark, smelly, moments in order to create something great. And so so much of the coaching I do with folks is really helping them embrace, hey, it's the down is to be appreciated just as much as the up, because otherwise, why add resistance to the formula when you don't need to?
Yeah. And I think people need to hear this right now, because so many of us are in a breakdown of some kind, including kids. It's been a really crazy time. So before we started this, I was saying I want to talk about the two things that I think are just so important right now, which is truly being and listening. And by listening, I'm really talking about that inner that inner voice, which again, I just feel like women and moms are so busy on the conveyor belt, hamster wheel, whatever it is, the routine, that they don't allow themselves often to
Mm,
stop the madness, just pause and,
mhm,
kind of tune into that moment of the tree, the sunlight through the leaves, or just something
mm, mm.
that can connect themselves back to earth,
Yeah,
back to inhabiting their body and being.
yeah,
You're not a
yeah.
robot.
No.
You're not a Stepford wife. You're not whatever,
Right.
just so I don't know if you want to say more about that, but I just feel like that is something
Yeah.
people just really need to hear right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Essential.
Yeah. Well, I think, when stress runs high, for us moms, we have such a grave, naturally grave sense of responsibility
Yeah.
for our family and for the world that we create around us. And that's just natural. That's just how it goes. And when stress runs really high, we can get kicked into survival mode and overdrive,
Yeah.
which then means when we're in survival mode, we're going to have a lot of cortisol in our system. And so cortisol, while it's a very necessary and healthy part of the natural order of things, when we've got too much in our system, it really does wreak havoc. And the effects of cortisol, while it gives us the fight or flight, it also serves to dampen our prefrontal cortex, which really allows us to look into the future optimistically, that allows us empathy, that allows us to take disparate ideas, bring them together, innovation. And so, it's when stress is running high and when we couple that with this responsibility that we feel, we're going to just go into autopilot where we're going to constantly cycle through, what do I have to plan for? 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 And so with that cortisol in our system, it acts like red glasses. And so now everything I perceive is going to be a little more threatening, because that's the brain's way of trying to protect us. It's okay, well, if it's a little more threatening, like then I'm going to look out a little more. I'm going to be a little more fastidious. I'm going to be. And so what happens, I think, is that we can just enter into this, as you said, hamster wheel of addition, of just stress and over planning. And I think we get stuck. So I'm reflecting on my experience. I
Yeah.
will get stuck in working through future narratives and
Mm.
planning and 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 planning. And I'm constantly trying to predict the future, because that's the beauty of our brain. And it's also, I think, our downfall, it's because we're constantly trying to predict. So that
Right.
right there is what keeps us from being present.
Exactly.
And it's so, and it just, and how it feels to be constantly 4 steps ahead,
Scary. Yeah.
constantly trying to anticipate it's exhausting.
Mhm.
And, you know, and I think it's so easy to forget that the fix, that the solution is so simple, which is just drop thought and be right now. Be where your feet are, right now. Right
Mhm.
now. And it's in the drop into right now. And a tool that I use with folks in order to make this shift and be more present is just pick one sense, one of our senses, whether it's sight, whether it's smell, whether it's hearing. I like hearing a lot,
Right.
or feeling. And it's just get super present right now. Oh. Like, so you can maybe focus on the hum of the laptop. Oh. Or you can just notice the glimmering green of the leaves. But there's something so wonderful. It's like it stops that crazy momentum. And in that moment of presence, you realize, oh, hey, all that's real is right now. And right now is kind of lovely. And
Yeah.
everything right now is pretty manageable. And it's in that the art of coming back to the now moment. I mean, it sounds so cliche because we're talking about it all the time, but do people really know what that means? Do they really know how easy it is to practice it, to just drop it right now?
Mhm.
Right now. And the more and more we can do that, the more and more we can gather our internal resources to be more loving, to be more present, to feel, and which really breaks that cycle. And it opens up to this other thing we were talking about, really listening to our inspiration versus listening for the strategy,
Yeah,
right?
because the question that comes up all the time when you talk about intuition it's like, well, how do I know it's not? How do I know like an intuition or an
Mm,
intuitive hit or download or whatever on the spiritual, we'll talk about that type of language
yeah, yeah,
versus just some random thing. And it's like,
yeah,
if you're not in your body, I feel like that's a feel thing. I feel the difference between those two things. They feel completely different. But
totally.
if you're not used to it and you don't drop into your body ever,
Mm,
you don't know. So it really starts with what you just said. And then it's like getting used to
hmm.
what that feels like. It becomes a familiar thing. And then your body is something you learn to trust.
Oh,
And you
yes.
learn to trust
Yeah.
the external versus, no, this thing lights me up and I feel good versus, yeah, I'm vibrating with fear and anxiety or trepidation that
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, right? Like there's,
Yes.
yeah. So I don't know
Oh,
if you can say more about that, but that's
that's
been a
it.
learning thing. Yeah.
You know, Stephanie, that's what it's all about, is that discernment between, you know, what is my wisdom telling me through
Mhm.
this feeling of inspiration, through this through feeling,
Mhm.
versus what is not, what is information telling me, what is my calculations telling me, which tends to feel really busy up here. So it's this, the sensational difference between what's kind of emerging here versus what's happening up here. Absolutely, it's feeling it out versus figuring it out. It's that's truly what it's all about. You know, I'll um, when I partner with individuals to really help them step through this process, to feel it out instead of figure it out, because really that's the path of abundance. That's the path of joy, because your wisdom tells you so much. And to listen for inner inspiration, if you're not used to it, you're like, okay, well, what does that feel like? And the best way I can describe it is, you know, if you've ever been in a conversation or you're reading something or something comes across your path and you get this feeling like, it's that, it's kind of like you get the breath knocked into you instead of
Yeah.
knocked out of you. It's that that feeling, you know, that is that feeling of inspiration. And, you know, for anyone that wants to get better at really feeling out and listening for that, something that I've recommended, and it's really fun and it seems to work, is go to a Barnes and Noble or a big bookstore that has the big magazine section.
Yep.
And as you and the task is, as you go through and kind of look through the magazines, your job is to really feel for what, when you pick something up, are you getting this feeling of like, oh, like like there's this energetic kind of surge where your eyes get bigger and there's this feeling like, oh, I want to know more. And it's almost like you feel a little lighter in the shoulders, and there's this zing that kind of arises and from the
Got
bottom and
it.
it kind of comes up like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh, I wonder. And, you know, it could be about knitting. It could be about dolphins. It could be about cars. I mean, but it's interesting because what is it, if you focus on it, makes you feel versus, say you pick up a magazine on, you know, the, you know, post COVID economic study, blah, 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 right? So your head goes, ooh, I should read this. This would be good for my job. This would, whatever it might be, right? And
Right.
so you might see something where you'll feel a pull, but it's a very different feel. And the locus of energy is up here. And it's this kind of calculation. And it doesn't feel light, it feels heavy, but there's still a pull. And so, what I'll tell
Yeah.
folks is that if you can get good at really feeling for the differences, where's the locus of energy? Is it here, kind of lower in the chest where it's very expansive? Then that's the path of feeling out your inspiration. Great. But if you are feeling the locus of energy up here in your head and it's feeling really frenzied and busy, and you feel maybe you feel a little heavy in the shoulders, but you feel motivated, because that's the thing, right? Because you're like, I should do this, right? Then that's figuring it out. And
Mm.
that's the path of the formula I had mentioned earlier. That's the autopilot. That's the, I'm going to totally be 4 steps ahead, not present. And so if we can get good at discerning for those sensations and really listening for the and
Right.
following that and trusting that, hey, this is this is a good thing. Let's see where this takes me, because it always ends up being way better than you can imagine. following, and this is where you just have to trust in magic, because it's true.
Right.
It's just true.
Give it a shot. Even if
Yeah.
you're like, nah, just give it a shot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that in Barnes and Noble. I have a Barnes and Noble that I love that I bring my kids to. And that's exactly the feeling. And that's why I love it. It's because there's so many ideas and images and things there to stimulate you, to pull you in and to give you a sense of wonder or hope or
Yeah.
creativity or whatever. So that I love that Barnes and Noble test. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
Really good. Really
Tell
good.
your kids you're looking through all the magazines. What are you doing, Mom? I'm trying to see if I feel this out or if I'm figuring this out. I don't know. What?
And it's what I also was thinking when you're saying that, it's like, how often do we, like, I'm on the same path you're on. I'm pretty far along in like listening to urge versus logic and reason, because
Mhm.
I see that when I lean into more of that inspiration and that, that visceral urge to do something, that the payoff is so much greater. And like,
Oh,
like it cuts out 80% of the work, like life somehow just
yes.
magically gets easier and the word ease shows up. Whereas when I
Yes.
go to that logical, well, this makes sense, I should do this, and
Yes.
it's expected of me.
Right.
It's just like, it just
No.
work.
It's
Yeah.
it's absolutely right. And I break this down in my book, and particularly on chapter 4. So I know you have a copy. I don't know if you're there
Chapter
yet, but
4, yeah.
chapter 4, it's titled "I Should You Not."
Oh,
And
perfect.
but you're spot on, because should really is the engine of figuring it out. And should, it implies, I mean, think about the word should. Should implies that there's this fixed reality out there that we have to align to in order to have the good life.
Right.
But when you stop and think about it, you're, wait, that doesn't exist. There is no big book in the sky of shoulds, right? And so we hold ourselves captive to this false premise that holds us underwater, because should is all about, it's resistance, it's avoiding the things we don't want. And so it's riddled with, and the really, it's about resistance. It's riddled with resistance. And so to go back to this concept you just said about flow, if we can achieve flow and on our path, so much more happens more quickly, more easily, because resistance just slows us down. I mean, it's like if you're going to go run a marathon, and you want to really do well, the last thing you want to do is put a 20-pound backpack on your back, right? But that's what resistance is. And so it's, oh my gosh, there's so much to say about this, but following your inspiration, as illogical as it might seem at times, will always lead you. It's the path of least resistance to the path of most abundance. And it's tremendous. I know in my story, the moment I surrendered, and that incredible, I call it a divine download, because I have no idea what else to call it, right?
Yeah, sounds like it was. Yeah.
Shifted me in a moment. Everything changed. And that insight, it's not about figuring it out, it's about feeling it out. I committed and I said, okay, then that means that from this point forward, I must listen for that and follow it, even if it makes no sense. And so very quickly, the moment I committed to that, now here I've got this infant, it was like, okay, I'm going to pick up my textbooks again in physics and quantum physics, because I have to feel this. And now I'm reading about, from these astrophysicists and quantum physicists. And then I'm getting curious, the Science and Non-Duality Conference, what's this? And so very quickly, I just kept following this path of, and it was literally like a lit path to this path that I'm on now, which is fascinating when you think about it, right? I end up at a Science and Non-Duality Conference where I'm introduced to this field called transpersonal psychology. And what's this? I have to study this. And my dear sweet husband was like, what are you going to do with that? And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no clue, but it's going to be good. And he's like, oh my gosh, okay. And so I've got this infant. I get my master's in transpersonal psychology. I have no clue what I was going to do with it, but I was fascinating. And it was boom, 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 boom. And coaching that was in my graduate. Well, what's this? And pretty soon, boom, and in an incredibly short period of time, a whole new trajectory was created purely by listening for that feeling and really honoring when my thought, when my strategy would try to, oh, well, maybe you should do this. Well, maybe an advanced degree in physics is a better idea. Oh, right. Well, that's probably a better idea. No, stop. That's here, not here. Right. And so really honoring that was key. And so now here I've been a coach for over 10 years, and it's been
Wow.
a miracle every day, really.
That's amazing. And I just think there's so many moms, especially, who are in that exact spot where they're like, this is not the trade-off that I want, because they've
Right.
had the experience of being home with their kids now, and
Right.
all that's going on in the world. I think I just feel like we want to be closer and protect
Yeah.
those and be more connected to those around us and care for them, and truly be there, not, oh, I'm 45 minutes, an hour and a half away
Yeah.
when something
Yeah.
happens during the day. Like,
That's
it's
right.
not that you don't want your kids to go to school or have things to do, but it's so nice to be able to create something with purpose
Mm-hmm.
that allows you to have all the feelings and do the things that you want to do with the
Oh, yeah.
people in your life, and have those experiences, and
Yeah.
really have agency over your life, and feel like it's your life, not the
Mm,
one that someone else chose for you or you just
that's
happened
right.
into.
You followed the
So,
formula. That's right.
yeah,
Formula that was given to you that you were told is going to bring you happiness. We never,
exactly.
yeah. Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do you do? We must have so many people, not just women, coming up to you, like, who are feeling stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And here's the other piece of that is, if you, again, I'm going to go back to moms because my audience is mostly women
Oh,
and moms,
yeah. And
and they're in transition of many different kinds, whether it's
yeah.
divorce, whether it's moving, whether it's, maybe their
Yep.
husband lost their job, or,
Yeah.
so there's pressure. So what do you say to people
Mm,
who are in that spot? I mean, everything we said just applies, but is there anything else that
for
you think?
sure. Yeah, for sure. It's so making this shift from figuring it out to feeling it out kind of requires a different set of questions. And we often ask the question, what do I want to do? What do I need to do? What should I do?
Exactly.
And what we have to kind of shift to is more of a being question. Who do I want to be? But what I have found is the most fruitful question to ask is, what do I want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
And this is such an important question. And I wish I'm this is what I'm working on teaching my children, is to be asking this question just as much as we're asking the other questions, because the truth is, everything we want, everything we think it's for the thing, but that's not true. Everything we want it because we think it's going to make us feel a certain way, right? So if I want a promotion, it's not that I want the title. I'm assuming that title, that change is going to give me a feeling state that's not now, that's going to be better than now. But we don't really take it that far. We don't really examine, well, what's this really about? So we stop at the thing. And so what happens is we go and chase the thing, and we never really check, well, is this thing really going to give me the feeling? Because we haven't even really decided, what do I want to feel? And so we stop at the thing, and then we feel hollow. Our life might look great on paper, or that it all checks off, but we still feel either dead inside or not. It's all of us are struggling with this to some degree. And it's simply because we're not asking, what do I want to feel? And so the first step in moving through transition, or making this shift from figuring it out to feeling it out, is just get really honest with yourself. What do I want to feel? It's like, oh, I want to feel at peace. I want to feel inner calm. I want to feel significant. I want to feel, you decide, but it's getting in touch with what is that feeling, and then asking, okay, well, could I feel that now? Could I look around in my life and find reasons to feel that now? And if not, what little things could I shift to begin to feel that? As I look around, and can I find reasons to feel that if I make little changes here? And if not, well, if I'm super clear that that's what I want to feel, here's what's so cool. As you start to crystallize a desired feeling state, it's amazing what starts to emerge. as what's for possibilities, because now your lens is changing. You're getting more clear. So the things in front of you start to become more obvious. Like, oh, you know what? I am going to take that class that I've been putting off for XYZ. Oh, you know what? I am going to join that group, or I am going to make this massive change in my life because, it's obvious, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of the why you shouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Which often are in opposition to whatever tricky situation you're in with your rational brain. I had a friend, this is just an example that was relevant to this morning, about just talking about, it's like we have a focus when we're in transition and we're trying to do, what anybody would say is, the reasonable or smart thing or logical thing to do. Like, I just got divorced. I want to increase my credit score. Increasing my credit score is going to allow me to get a different car. It's going to help me to buy a house, whatever those things are, right? And I was just talking to my friend. I was like, listen, and she needs an iPad. I was like, I know you're trying to get your credit score up, but here's a really quick way to, like, if you have this iPad, which you can get for $10 more through whatever your phone carrier is, like, is that $10 and that extra thing, like, what is your happiness score with, like, this man-made judgment of your value as a human being as a credit score? It's like that duality, right? Like, what isn't your happiness score more important? And I was like, I'm not telling you to be irresponsible and go rack up your credit. I'm just saying, in this moment, a 13 to 15 credit score difference or whatever, like, does that really matter if you're going to be miserable, chugging away, trying to get those numbers up over the next few months when you could just buy the damn iPad and get the thing done and work remotely and do your thing? It's like it's silly little tiny thing that we're so stuck in our box that we don't, and we're so programmed that we don't even allow ourselves to think of anything like that.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, what a great story. So, and it's such a real story. I mean, how many of us find ourselves doing this to ourselves?
We punish ourselves.
Yeah. And
no, I need to go into the box until I get better. I'm in the repair mode, so I don't get to do anything.
It's tunnel vision. We end up with this tunnel vision. And again, it's I think partly because of that survival mode that we enter into is because of the stress that we start to feel, and we just forget that there's another way. And that's why dropping into being super present in your body in a moment is a way of kind of, oh, wait, okay, yeah, you know what? Would this make me happy? Does this feel good? Because we'll just forget to ask that question. We're in such hyperdrive, autopilot mode. We forget to check in on the happiness score. Yeah. Yeah, really well said.
And thank you. I just feel like the thing, and I'm guilty of this, I've got 2 kids. I came out of a toxic relationships. I'm still co-parenting with somebody who's very, very tricky, who impacts my kids, who impacts me. But then I realized I had my own little dark night of the soul breakthrough a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
And a massive shift. And it felt amazing. And I feel like a completely different person than who I was before that happened. Wow. And, we have these, they come in waves, right? Yeah. But this one was a big one. And the main thing that came out of that for me is, as a person, as a mother, who I am and my happiness and my stability, my groundedness, my peace radiates outward to everybody around me like a little beacon, right? Wherever I am, but especially my family. So if my kids are dysregulated and acting out, one thing I can do is just be calm myself and find joy myself and be with them and look them in the eyes and spend time with them, instead of going, no, I gotta go here. I gotta do this thing. Typing away and like being a busy little bee, or going, no, don't bother me now. Not that I do that all the time, but and it's amazing the difference. You notice it immediately. Your kids tune into that peace.
Oh, absolutely
right?
True.
It can be a huge breakthrough, especially if you're like, oh, well, maybe they need a new therapist, new medication, whatever.
Right.
And maybe those things are true.
Yeah.
but it also could be start working on you, because we all are like little grains of sand. We all are kind of together.
Yeah.
Making
Yeah.
a difference,
Oh my gosh. It's what, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's so, what a
Too.
beautiful insight. And, you know, and it's such a profound and I mean, so profound. It's simple, and so simple, it's profound to just drop into being present,
Yeah.
right, in a moment, as the transformative shift that's required to bring everyone back to homeostasis, bring back everyone back to their center and to love. And it's so simple, yet that it's almost hard, because how do we remember to do that? You know, in the midst of how do
And
we?
triggering, if you're
Yeah.
being triggered by your kids, right?
Oh
Because
my
they're calling
gosh.
you names. I hate you, mom, or you're
Yeah.
that, you're that. And so it's like,
Yeah.
if you keep doing this work though, it does get easier, because
Yeah.
that stuff tends to be, it can roll off you.
That's right. That's right.
That sticker, and you're
That's
like,
right.
what did you say to me? What?
That's right. Well, there is a tool that I offer often, because it's so helpful, and I'm sure you're familiar with this. I love the technical term is name it to tame it, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it works. It's where, when you get triggered, naming the fact that you've been triggered, just naming it, right?
Mhm.
So in my world, you know, I say this to myself in my head. I'll say, oh, I've just been triggered. Oh, wow, I've just been triggered,
Yeah, it's
right?
been
Or you could say, oh,
triggered.
I'm angry. But naming it from that metacognitive place
Mhm.
versus I'm so triggered right now. That doesn't work.
Right.
You triggered me. I mean, that
Right.
definitely doesn't work. That feeds the trigger. But
Right.
when you find yourself, when you get triggered, it's that meta part of you that goes, oh, check yourself out. Wow, you're really triggered right now. Just by naming it, we downregulate. We start to downregulate that cortisol, and we can get out ahead of the trigger. So as a practice for really living into what we're talking about, it can be super helpful.
That's exactly it. I actually did not know that, but I like that a lot. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I was like, I stop and I go, okay.
Yeah.
I felt that. I felt those words. I felt that. And I see what she's doing. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to. This is a choice right now.
That's right. It's a
I don't
choice.
have to choose to react.
There it is. And so, oh, I can't tell you, like, the power of choice. I mean, really, that's why I wrote my book, because it's all about harnessing choice so that we can respond instead of react to life. And those choice points, those moments where we can harness choice, that's where life is lived. That's what it's all about, you know. And it's with our kids, I'll tell you, it's when I get triggered, I have learned, and so I'll share this with the moms out there. This is so powerful. I have learned that I will say it out loud. Okay, hold on. Mommy's just been triggered. Mom's just been triggered. Mom is triggered right now. And I'll say it, and I'll say it from that meta place, not you just triggered me, but I'm saying it out loud, because what I have noticed is that the whole house goes. And they're just waiting, because essentially I've realized I'm signaling safety, because by naming the fact that I know that I'm triggered, I am now claiming responsibility for everything that happens at this point forward. And so now my kids know that. They're like, okay, mom recognizes she's right on the brink of flipping her lid. And so she's totally she gets to decide where this ship goes. And so everyone takes a moment like, and it's an amazing way to reset the whole family, just by, hey, hold on, mom's just been triggered. Mom is triggered. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that. Well, first of all, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
From whatever the heck is happening. Yeah. Two, you removed you, which is huge, because that's a blame and a shame thing. But we can do that when we're triggered.
Yeah.
So you do not use that word. I love that. And then I just think I think kids are often trying to get attention. They're trying, you're their little plaything. They're pushing their buttons. They love the little power thing. Oh, look what I did. So you're kind of giving them that. Oh, I did trigger her. But stop.
Yeah, that's right. Is this a trajectory I want to go down? Yeah.
It's so funny. I love that. I wrote that down. I'm going to use that one. Kids are going to be like, my kids are so bold in there. Like, what's wrong with you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess mama's got to share the tools,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It'll be fun. I'll let you know
Yeah.
what goes
Yeah.
on, but that's a
Awesome.
really good one.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah. Very good.
Well, this has been amazing, Amy, and I'm
Oh, thank you.
so looking forward to your book getting out there and reaching
Oh,
people.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so excited about this book. So it's titled Living on Purpose, and the subtitle is 5 Deliberate Choices to Realize Fulfillment and Joy. And so, yeah, so it's all about harnessing choice. And what are the 5 perceptual shifts? Very fundamental, very powerful, rather simple, but fundamental shifts that we need to make in order to really make right our relationship with ourselves and the world in order to thrive. And it's, I incorporate a bit in social neuroscience and psychology and other things, and a lot of case studies from my work and my own personal stories too. But what's possible when we can harness choice at the level of perception? It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and it's perfect timing because people are feeling so out of control.
Yeah.
And you're giving the control back.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the message, because really we do have control over so many things that we think we don't.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Taking full responsibility for the quality of our life. Like nothing feels better. It's scary. And when you do it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Liberating.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. So it's on pre-order, available on Amazon, which is great, but it's not going to come out till May 24th.
All right. So I can
Yeah.
link to the pre-order page, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
I will absolutely be doing that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I'm so glad and delighted with this whole episode and the message behind it that you brought.
Thank you,
so much.
Stephanie. A pleasure. Truly a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me.